Never forget one of my favorite stories. I shouldn't say favorite stories. Someone shoots an AR-15 in the woods because they were pissed because we broke up a drug deal in the building. We're calling local law enforcement. They're ignoring it. They show up. Guy's got a pot belly, never shot a gun in his life, the local PD. He says to Mike, I was on the phone, and he's like, I don't know if that was an AR-15. That might have been at the range. That was like 10 miles away. This is 10 o'clock at night. It's pitch black. And Mike goes, I know what live 5.56 rounds sound like. Do you? And the cop had nothing to say. He had absolutely no comeback at all. And I've got the video clip still. I don't know if you know this. You guys are walking the perimeter. The shots go off. And you can see the hair. Like, if you could see the camera, the hair is standing up my arms. And that's when I was like, this is my guy. Like if I'm ever kidnapped, I'm calling him. The shots go off. You can hear it on the camera. Everyone else is panicking. People are freaking out. You go on camera. You pull out your firearm. You get into a procedure, and you start securing and scouring the perimeter. Correct. And I was like, this is the difference between shit talking and fuck around and find out. Like, this is the difference. I saw it in real life on black and white CCV video, and it's just wild. Do you want to know what state I'm looking at now for investing? Want to know where I'm starting to look? California.
No, you're not.
I swear to God.
Oh my God.
Hear me out on this.
The world is now
Do you
upside
know?
down.
Do you know what? Well, I don't know if I'll pull the trigger yet, but do you know what state just moved more towards Trump than any other state? Massachusetts. Number 2, California. If they even just get back to a little bit more to the center, just a little bit more common sense, think about what happens to prices over there and which way that market goes.
How do you like your steak cooked?
Oh, fucking rare. Like, if you eat it, what do you mean that face? There's only one way to eat a steak.
Well done.
Well done. That's impossible. You know there's restaurants that will not make you. If you go to Florence, they will not cook your steak more than medium rare.
I won't eat it rare.
Well, that's because you're confused. And you don't know what a good steak is. Steak is rare. Ideally, I do my steak like real thick steak, seared, 3 minutes on each side, and it should be like purplish cool.
Oh, no.
You don't know what you're doing. That's fine.
One of the first nights we were there, it was probably 3 hours of the first shift. We're still trying to get like the layout of the building. The property was, I don't know, it was substantial. We were like finding homeless camps like out in the woods and everything. So we're trying to track everything. And as we were walking the outside perimeter of the building, we heard screaming like someone was being murdered from the parking lot. So we ran up to the front of the building, and I find she's probably like in her early 50s lady, obvious drug user, and she's sitting there with like a needle in her arm, and she's like covered in blood, screaming, and her son, a drug addict, is like beating the absolute hell out of her. And that was like our first interaction with this place.
Welcome to real estate. You want to get in this arena. I tell everybody, everyone thinks it's easy because that's how social media makes it look. But this is behind the scenes. You can't complain about how high rent is when all the costs are going up to maintain a building, when then you block all of the building. When we started investing in Manchester, there was less than 100 units. 2 years ago, there was only 131 apartments available. Today, there's 1,300. Guess what's happening since the first time we started investing in Manchester? What are we doing? We're cutting rents. We're dropping rents to fill units. That's natural. That's how an economy, a healthy market functions. Yeah. Trump going on the podcast and the viewership of doing Patrick Bet-David, doing Joe Rogan, doing Theo Vaughn, I think it was like 250 million or 500 million views, right?
Yes.
That has just so changed the times. And I guess I was amazed. Like, I think people tend to think of listeners in like a bucket, right? Like, I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, "Yeah, Rogan, he's so right wing conspiracy." I'm like, Joe Rogan's right wing. Have you ever actually listened to Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan.
I was about to say,
Democrat.
if you listened, he says he's a lifelong Democrat.
Yes, but he has common fucking sense.
Yeah.
And what he did on his show that I think helped Trump back to the strategy, he came on, they didn't edit anything. It's a 3-hour deep dive. And a lot of people felt like they had been lied to with a perception because they can't think. Mm-hmm. And it swayed it. And I think it's interesting that television, one, mainstream media is dead, but also even their medium and the way people can, absorb content, YouTube shorts, in-depth interviews, a podcast lends to that. And Trump took advantage of that. We're talking about Adderall. Matt's drug was Facebook Marketplace. he's not scratching.
He used to rip the run,
Jonesing
though.
when he gets in there.
Still banned from Facebook Marketplace.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I don't know why. He's tried for like 5 years to get back in
and I never...
So someone reported you? Is that what happened?
I think so, yeah. Well. I never really did anything wrong.
The best was this fucking asshole. We posted an ad.
This is, I think, why people got pissed and they just...
We would get 70 comments. "You slumlord, how do you charge this much?"
I've seen those.
Back
Yeah.
when rent was $1,100 and, now it's $15.
Then what he would do is he wouldn't say anything. Then people would be DMing on the side, right? "Hey, I'm interested in the unit. I'm interested in the unit." We'd fill the unit, and then Matt would go on to say, "Thank you for all your feedback. The unit has been filled. Have a great day." And, and then he
what
turned
people got
off
mad at.
commenting. He turned off commenting, so he got the last word every time.
To me, that doesn't seem wrong. I don't know
Oh
why
my
Facebook
God.
blocked me.
It was
It's pretty funny, actually.
amazing. it was so good.
First unit walked in, and I remember I knocked on the door, and this guy opens it. And mind you, there's just a waft of cigarette smoke because he's just smoking in that unit. And so you could see like the yellow on the door because it was a little bit of a screen. But when he opened it, cockroaches like fell out like almost on top of my head. Unfortunately, had a lot of mental illness, had trash that was leading all the way up to his sink because he wasn't throwing stuff away.
He wasn't, with it per se. We finally got hold of his father. And then what we did, which was wild, we actually paid for a cleaner to come clean his apartment every 2 weeks while he lived with us. Because he just needed help. He physically couldn't, he didn't understand the concept of keeping the unit clean. And actually, after about another 3 years, he unfortunately took a turn again for the worse. But again, back to Commonwealth Collective, being awesome, being a great company. We found an organization that took people like him and provided assisted living.
Have you always loved to swear, or is this something you've picked up as a real estate investor?
I have been swearing a lot since I was 7. And the reason I swear so much is my best friend to this day is Puerto Rican. And when he first came to America, his parents didn't know English, but they knew Spanish. So my mother to this day, my mother does not like curse words. In fact, PJ will not curse around my mother to this day. So I got to go to his house and he used to just drop the F-bomb because you're 7 and you think it's funny. I think it was just ingrained in me. Okay. And actually, there's been studies that show higher intelligent people curse more often. We can link to that in the clip.
Use 3 words to describe what it's like to have your wife and best friend as a business partner.
Lovely.
So good.
No, 3 words to describe having your wife and best friend as a business partner. Empowering, challenging, extraordinary. Atlanta has rent softening. Rents are falling in Atlanta because they're overbuilding.
And I moved down there, 4 years ago, and it was like 1,800 4 years ago. I'm only at $2,000. And I upgraded into a luxury building.
Yep.
But they don't have any of that rent control, all that stuff. When you say rent control, it reminds me of in Lawrence, when like people couldn't get out of their buildings, the owners started setting the houses on fire.
Lawrence, Mass, in case people are checking.
Happened in New York too.
Yep.
Rent control building, you can't get out of it. They started burning things down. That was the 80s. Caused a huge pyromania.
It's a
out
massive
there.
problem because it gets to the point where the market moves on you so much you can't maintain the building. Like, like we tell people, like, hey, you want to know how you get rent softening? You let people build. Yeah. You lower taxes. You lower insurance.
Less regulation on building too.
Correct. That's a huge one.
Very helpful.
But the problem with that is that I don't think people realize it's NIMBYism, right? I'll never forget Steph Curry's clown ass talking about, I want affordable housing. I want housing for all. Then he went and blocked an affordable development.
Oh, it was behind his house.
In his luxury neighborhood.
I got spun up and went to Afghanistan. I went to Kabul, Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. And I was not.
Did something else happen in Afghanistan around that time?
Yeah, something very big did happen. The withdrawal happened. The disastrous withdrawal. There was some crazy stuff going on there, like people throwing their kids over the wall. And, on the other side of that wall is what we call concertina wire. And you just got a baby thrown over it, and it hits the baby's neck because they just threw it into a pile of concertina wire. Or, we're like working side by side with Taliban, who's been our enemy for 20 years, but suddenly we're supposed to be friendly with them, and then they're in the crowd just killing people. And you're sitting there watching it, being told you can't engage. Like I was told, like on a Monday afternoon, that we were holding the embassy. Like everyone knew the Taliban was coming. It just seemed when they showed up, like we knew they were there. And it was like all hell broke loose.
I end up being a Trump supporter. I don't give a fuck about Trump.
This is the thing we always talk about.
But it's like I can think. I'm not an idiot, right? And the framework.
I think the thing that we also hate too is that people put you in a box as being a Trumper.
Yes.
Like right out the gate, and you're like,
or a never Trumper.
Yeah, but I'm not a Trumper. It's just the fact that so far a lot of the things that he said he was going to do, he did, and it worked.
Yes.
And the things that other people have done didn't work. So I'm going to go with what works. You could put whoever you want in there.
Donald Trump didn't just come out of nowhere. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
Suddenly he wins office and he's a racist. He's a felon. He's a criminal. He's all these things they're telling you. They try to kill him twice. So I started to ask the question the way I think, who doesn't want him in this job so much where they're willing to risk this? And that makes me go more towards it.
Yep.
Because if you're putting up that kind of defense and that kind of force against something, I want to question why. The resident that beat up the other upstairs resident because her husband got caught buying certain services from the young lady upstairs who was finding other creative ways to pay her rent. Keep in mind, we rented to this woman because her father was on the lease and was a pastor and was also co-signing for her lease. So we thought, what could go wrong here?
And that was the one. Do you remember that when we went to go evict her, she was very combative at first. Then it was starting to get to like the end where she was really going to get evicted. And I went in to, I don't know, pick up a money order because she's like, I can give you part of it. She tried leaving a bowl of Skittles out and was like, hey, like if you want to take some Skittles.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't know what's coated on this to try to poison me, so I am not going to take any of these Skittles. She left a note. She wasn't even there. So
take the Skittles. Taste the rainbow, Matthew.
Yeah.
She wanted you to taste something.
For my freedom number, when we sat down in that coffee shop, you basically wanted me to take what I would need to live on for a month, and I need to make that somehow without working.
Yep.
So I was able to figure out that for me, right now, $5,000 a month is my freedom number.
Yep. That was awesome. And then we also looked at that chart. What most people don't realize, and this is a cool stat, like especially when you're trying to talk to people about building wealth, I have everyone put down their budget. It's the first thing we always do because everyone always assumes that they need more money to live on than what they actually need to get started. And that's why we do the whole activity, because I think it's like 55 or 65% of American spending is tied up in home and car. So everyone's always like, oh, don't go to Starbucks. No, that doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're spending a couple $100 a day eating out, sure. But the $5 latte isn't going to make you free. It's the housing and the car. And what you did with a house hack was a perfect example. You basically gave yourself essentially a $40,000, $50,000 raise, and now you're living for free. And I always feel like it's the people who are like just starting their journey, or they're so in their own way, and it's all how they show up. They think they got the answers. It's like, well, if you show up thinking you've already arrived, right? Like we don't have to do. We could have rested on our laurels. We don't have to pay a consultant and a coach like Ian. We don't have to go to masterminds. We're putting ourselves as Commonwealth Collective purposely in positions to get uncomfortable because what we believe comes on the other side of it.
Like when something happens, like I want to be the guy to take care of it. I'm the provider. I'm like, I don't want somebody else to protect me. I'm going to protect myself. And we realize that there's a lot of men like that. They don't know how to do it. And we're like, what if we could bring our training? Now we're not trying to create like a private militia or anything like that. Like need to say that. We were like, how do we portray what we know and give it to people? Because you've seen all these crazy incidents. Let's talk about the Uvalde school shooting.
Oh my God.
You had a school that was being shot up, and right now I believe the chief of police, they're facing like 30 years currently because they endanger the lives. Kind of like you say, like the shoot or shoot thing. Like, you don't
Everyone's
find
a
out.
shooter until it's time to squeeze.
Correct.
Yep.
But in an active shooter training, we have a thing. It's you run to the gun.
Yeah.
That is it. Nothing else matters. You have people bleeding out on the ground, throw them a tourniquet. You'll get back to that because you're trying to stop excess lives from dying.
Yep.
And that was like the perfect example of like, do people actually have the proper training? And it's coming out that no, they don't.
we had these two girls. We found out that they had an OnlyFans, or they had a Twitter, or whatever it was, that they were filming some nostalgia and some things. When they did that, though, they happened to clog the bathroom toilet, or actually, sorry, the bathtub. And when they clogged it, it was because they were recreating some scene with blood and lube and things because it was Halloween and they had masks on.
And this is actually how we found out they had an OnlyFans, because we had to do a correction after the plumber made a comment because he found the girls online and creeped out the girls. So now they're reaching out to us saying, this guy's a creep. He's in our apartment. He's talking about our professional work or whatever it is.
I think he put on like their cat ears or something like that and took a selfie and sent it to them. Like it was
something so unprofessional that now we have to give a credit for this creep who's not even part of our company for the girls that clogged our tub shooting their OnlyFans scene. The toughest guys are always the guys who are calm enough to walk away because they know what they can do.
Oh, yeah.
Does that training, is that confidence, you find a confidence from, and you've been martial arts your whole life.
I've started martial arts when I was 5, and it really was just an outlet because I tried a bunch of different things like most kids do when you're younger. Basketball, baseball.
Now, I've seen you try to run. You are not an athlete like
I'm
that.
not.
I've
I'm not
seen
built
that.
for those things.
It is not good.
I am not built for those things. But martial arts was just one of those things that just stuck, and it was just from 5 years old. It's just been a lifestyle, and I think that's why, for me, anyways, it gives me that discipline because I know, like when I was going to karate back in the day, you went 3 or 4 times a week because you had to learn the stuff because you had to test and you had to progress and do what you need to do. And I think I carry that over in a lot of other aspects. I just stick with things. Sometimes it's not even that I'm very good at certain things, but I have that work ethic that I got from martial arts to keep pushing through and keep fighting and working. I think draining the swamp, the issue was that he didn't have a blueprint getting into office. Like no one has a blueprint being president.
He did say that. He did say he wasn't. He didn't think he was going to win. Is what he
If
said.
you come in through a political lens and you were a politician, you probably have circulated certain people. You've met certain Senate leaders, government leaders. He maybe has, but more on the business real estate side. But when you're actually running a country, he didn't know any of that. So when he gets in there, there's people that are in the swamp that maybe he's trusted from some of his business relationships that are like, yeah, you know, this person, they would be great. And since he doesn't really know, he's got to hit the ground running. So he's going to go with it. So I think the first time that he was in there, he probably learned a lot on who should be in there, who shouldn't. I also think that prior going into this, he's aligned himself with people that we know that we've like Tulsi Gabbard, for example.
Yeah. Big
I
time.
liked it a lot when she was running the first time, actually on the Democratic side, and then abused Kamala.
You start the day with the hardest thing you have to do.
I mean, that's when I have the most energy mentally, right? I wake up, I'm
Yep.
clear-minded. I try to go to the gym right away. That's a hard thing. Get that
Correct,
done.
yeah.
While I'm on the treadmill, I'm looking at emails. Okay, what's an urgent need? What's pressing? Right? I might have something from a water bill that I might need to get paid or stuff shut off. And I build my day around importance first. Everything that can wait and that might be urgent from the person that's sending me the email might not necessarily be urgent in my big picture. And that's why I always, what's serious to me right now? What's pressing for me? And I'll tackle that first.
What was it like going to another country to run your business in the United States?
It was crazy, but
Yeah, you think?
yeah, it was crazy. It was even crazy. But you know what? It was just like the perfect thing to do. We were both like, you know what? If we have a child, like this is the only time we could do it, right?
Yep.
So that came about actually one day she was at work and I was running Grown Out Digital. And we were doing really well. And she was at work and she's pregnant and she just got called back to her office.
Yeah.
So she was working remote for a few years. They messed up by calling her back. So this is her first month back into office. And she goes, you know what, babe? I just want to quit and go to Mexico. And I was like, you told the wrong person. And then like later that day, it was like marinated in my mind. I'm like, you know what? Like we should do it. Like this
should
is
just go.
This would be the right time to do it. But the market kept getting like it was just funky. We couldn't find an apartment, a place to even rent. So we wanted to find a place to rent. It wasn't working out. So you said, you know what? Why go against the resistance? Maybe this is a sign. Maybe we should really do this.
The old model doesn't work. The pension, save your way to retirement, like inflation has just eroded so much wealth in this country. And these are our most needy people, right? I mean, these are people at the end of life. They've made the sacrifice. And a lot of them's retirement plan is hope. And hope is not a fucking plan. What's a piece of advice you would give to someone who might be thinking about making the jump to an entrepreneur from a traditional job? What's one thing you tell them?
Just do it.
Just pull the trigger?
Work
Nike?
hard. If you want it, just go get it.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself.
I love the God. That's a clip right there. We just fucking nailed it. Get the hat.
We want to have a place where we can run like intense scenarios from bringing in law enforcement agencies, hype it up a little bit more, give them that training they need, to we have the average dad that wants to learn how to manipulate his gun, learn how to do it under stress, and then learn proper ways to clear his home out. Learn how to, I come back from dinner with the kids, my back door's cracked. What do I do? Mm-hmm. We want that.
Love that.
And that's what we want to provide. We want to provide that to the average person. And then we also, not everything has to be preparing for a bad day. We want good things, and like with what you're doing.
The camaraderie, the relationships, the networking.
So we want to build like a gym, like a welcoming gym where, kind of like CrossFit style, like, you do a workout that you're laying on the ground after like talking to God. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we're getting an ice bath and then we're all sitting there drinking, talking about it. Like, I feel like that's an experience that a lot of men need, and there's nowhere to offer it. Yeah. And that's what we want to offer.
So I grew up here in rural New Hampshire, down in Amherst.
Yeah.
I spent all of my time outdoors. You know, my mom would kick us out of the house in the morning and say, all right, it's 9 o'clock. You have to go outside. Don't come back till 5.
Yep.
And that was the
Sounds
best
about
thing.
right.
It was the best thing ever because I go play in the woods and carve sticks and run in swamps and play. But I got to appreciate nature and really love it and enjoy it. And throughout my whole life, through college, through the military, through all my extracurriculars, I've always loved being outside. And that's always been my passion, always what I wanted to do. So when I started my company, Clear Summit Investments, I named it that because I wanted to use my business to go enable that free lifestyle of go climb mountains, Clear Summit.
My parents growing up, they had, I guess you can kind of include 2 rentals that they had overall. They built spec homes, I think probably 20 some. So real estate's kind of been in my blood.
So you were around the industry a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's always been in my blood. I mean, growing up, we moved every 2 years. Build a house.
For the tax reasons.
Oh yeah, build a house, make probably 6 figures, move.
Yep. So your father is a hustler.
Repeat. Yeah, for
Love
sure.
this guy. Shout out to Mr. Farley.
Yeah,
One day.
it's always in my blood. So that was kind of just what I went back to. Once coaching basketball was done, Bigger Pockets podcast was one of the biggest things that really
Same thing
drove
here.
that. Yeah.
same.
In fact, dudes I'm with in Boston right now, we were talking. There's 3 of us total last night. We all said the same thing. Yeah, around 2013, 14, 15, we all hopped on Bigger Pockets podcast, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how many lives were affected.
And as always, bet on yourself.